Wow, Colts Nation, what's going on? Some news from the Colts here recently. Two big pieces of news. Made a video about one earlier. First off, offensive coordinator Marcus Brady, no longer with the team. Frank Reich said he'll be taking over all the OC's duties. That's the first piece of news. Second piece of news, the most recent news, Colts trade running back Nyheim Hines. It was reported by Stephen Holder last night, and now it has come to fruition. And a little bit of a puzzling trade, if I'm being completely honest, Max, because you get a 6th-round pick for Hines that could turn into a 5th-round pick, and then you get another running back, funny enough, Zach Moss in this trade as well. So, I think initial thoughts are it's from what I heard, it seemed like Nyheim Hines wanted out. And I don't blame him, Max, because of the fact that the Colts, they paid him and then just really have not used him a whole lot. And he definitely hasn't lived up to that contract to no fault of his own. And the Colts trade him to a contender now in Buffalo, who you think's definitely going to use him out of the backfield a lot. The Colts get Zach Moss as well, who was a 3rd-round pick a couple years ago from Buffalo. Hasn't really panned out there. So just kind of an underwhelming trade, I think, from a lot of people's standards. I think the biggest takeaway I have is, Max, you get that contract off your books. You re-signed Hines a couple of years ago to that decently sized, he puts him in, I believe, the top 15 in terms of running backs paid. So you get that contract off your books at minimum, but it definitely sucks to see such a talented and versatile player like Nyheim Hines go.
Yeah, you said it. Chris Ballard got fleeced. There's no other way to put it. Chris Ballard got fleeced. And why would acquire another running back when Deion Jackson, first of all, is playing like a number 2? And then you have Philip Lindsay in your practice squad, who's also played well. They both played well in the Denver game a couple weeks ago on Thursday night. So why would acquire another running back who's also on the tail end of his rookie contract, and you're probably going to have to pay him if you want to pay him? You're probably going to – I don't know what this organization's plan is, but theoretically, just going through it, if you want to keep him, you're going to have to extend him probably next year. Zach Moss.
Yeah. Well, I do think that he's not going to cost very much. So, I guess if you look at to extend him, it's not going to be for very much. But still, I get what you're saying. It's a bit puzzling given how good Deion Jackson has looked. You would think, oh, we feel good about our running backs still, even with – and Philip Lindsay's on the practice squad as well. So, it feels like running back out of all the positions you had was definitely one I guess I didn't have an issue getting rid of Hines just because you're not using him. I guess I just was a little bit puzzled that you brought in another running back this year. I don't really know what to make of this trade, I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, me, you, and Derek were, I think, all on the same page of every name should be looked at. Nyheim Hines, I don't think was on any of our radars for a name that was going to be traded by today's deadline. Now, the day 3 pick, conditional 6 that could turn into a 5.
Yeah.
I don't understand how you can get that, like a day 3 pick for a player like that. And Buffalo's going to – Ken Dorsey, an upper-rising offensive coordinator in this league, who's probably going to be a head coach in the next couple of years, is going to turn Nyheim Hines into, I think, a Deebo Samuel kind of guy. And we're going to have to watch him all throughout the playoffs this year, and maybe even in the Super Bowl, which is making me sick just thinking about it.
It's becoming clear to me that Hines didn't want to be here.
Yeah, it has to be.
And that kills trade value. I think that's probably part of it as well. We were talking last night, Max, and I think, unfortunately, I don't like that that's true, but I think it's true that running backs are unfortunately a dime a dozen, and they're not really that valuable. As good of a player as I believe Hines is, and a lot of Colts Nation believe he is. I mean, it's just kind of you could find running backs that can catch it out of the backfield. Maybe not as effective as Hines, but at the end of the day, it's in the grand scheme of things compared to other positions, it's really not as valuable, I think, as a lot of other positions that people would talk about, say like an offensive lineman or a wide receiver or something of that nature, even though Hines can do a little bit of that. The running back position just kind of honestly gets overlooked by a lot of people. So I think it was a combination of those two things. If I was guessing, would be why the Colts kind of got an underwhelming thing for this deal. But yeah, I don't know, man. It was just kind of a puzzling trade altogether. But at least the Colts have, I guess, if there's a positive side to this, The Colts did acquire some draft compensation. They did, get that contract off their books for next year and moving forward. So there are some positive things, even though there are some negative things as well with this trade. And we'll see. I don't know what the conditions are for that 6th-round pick to turn into a 5th-round pick. I don't know if it's come out yet. I honestly been kind of scrambling, so I haven't been able to check what the conditions are out of this. But yeah, I don't know. It's just not really a trade that I'm a big fan of.
No, and I think the fan base can agree. When Nyheim, so I think this fan base is frustrated because Nyheim wasn't used properly the last couple of years. If Carson and now Matt, 2019 was his best year. 2020 with Phillip was his best year in 2019. So I'm confused where this whole thing went wrong. And we were talking about this, the decline of his offense is mind-boggling. Like where everything went. The Frank Reich saying that you should have Nyheim Hines on your fantasy team going into the season, and now you're trading him not 8 weeks in, and it's just how did we get to this point where you're trading Nyheim Hines for pennies on the dollar? And I understand the contract part. That was probably a big part of it. The Bills are going to have to take on that contract. But I think Nyheim Hines is worth a little more than a conditional 6th.
Right.
And who knows what's going to happen with Zach Moss. And first of all, Zach Moss, welcome to Indy. We're happy to have you. This is not your fault. Okay. But just the way this trade, the conversation was structured, and just the way the conversation we got back, this doesn't make sense for this team right here, right now. What's wrong with Philip Lindsay? Why can't you move him to 3? Why can't you move him to running back 3, Dion to 2? Dion should be I think showed a lot, and he showed that he can be cornerback running back 2. And now we're at this point where we have 4 running backs again.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't make any sense.
We'll see how it pans out. I don't really, just a little bit surprising. But then again, you see running backs all the time. I mean, heck, you see James Robinson go for a 4th-round pick. So didn't really get that much of a worse, out of it, all things considered. So, I don't know. It just sucks to see a player of Hines' caliber, go to a contender like this. But I don't know, man. You would think if the Colts believed in Reich in this system, first off, they fired the offensive coordinator. That was just, I think, a lot of a scapegoat for a bigger issue here. That's kind of how it always kind of seems to go. And then also, now trading one of your, most versatile weapons out there. It's kind of I don't even know what to make of that. To me, it's kind of more and more signaling that this regime's starting to near its end here with Indianapolis. That's just my thoughts.
Yeah.
That's just kind of what it feels like right now.
Well, I mean, just thinking about the compensation and the way this trade went down at the buzzer beater, at 3:58, 3:59, this trade got announced.
Yep.
And I feel if Nyheim wasn't eager to get out of Indy, then this trade probably wouldn't have happened at all. I think Ballard got what he could. I think it's possible, we're just speculating here, but it's possible that this relationship with Nyheim is broken. Because not that Nyheim didn't get the contract. He got the contract. He got the money. He got paid. But he wasn't being used the way he should be the last couple of years. Maybe this relationship soured over, and Reich had Ballard had no choice but to get what he could for him. Until we hear more that we're just speculating, but that's what I'm thinking right now.
Yeah. And maybe we were too, I think, in certain ways, we probably gave him more because we are a little nostalgic. Let's be honest. We love Nyheim Hines as a person, as a player. We probably didn't take into consideration maybe necessarily the market value for a running back who, has looked good, but hasn't been used enough, in my opinion. And, you look at just pure stats alone and you're I guess it's not that surprising. I do wish they would have gotten maybe just a little bit more. I do think they were probably looking for like a 4th round pick, and just Buffalo wouldn't budge. So they're like, fine, we'll take a conditional 6th. We'll add a player who we know has talent in Zach Moss, even though he hasn't really lived up to expectations, obviously, because there is still talent there with Zach Moss. Like, it's not like the Colts are getting a guy that was an undrafted free agent that hasn't touched the field, right? Zach Moss still has talent. 3rd round pick a couple years ago. So, yeah, it is what it is. Got to move on from this. And, man, I guess at this point, it's just kind of like you need all the draft capital you can get. I wish it was more that you got for Hines, but if you're not going to utilize him and you're going to pay him that much money, you might as well try to get something out of him. And I think that's kind of where the Colts were. And based off of what I heard, I don't remember which NFL insider it was, but it definitely seemed like Nyheim Hines definitely wanted out of Indy too. So there's a lot of factors that play into this. It just sucks that a good player didn't get more for him, but it is what it is, you know? So,
we move on.
So best of luck to Nyheim Hines in Buffalo. Definitely think they're going to hopefully I'm going to root for Buffalo, man. Definitely down the stretch. Root for Hines, maybe get to the Super Bowl, stuff like that. He definitely deserves it. I'm just intrigued to see how they utilize him because they do have, some other players like Devin Singletary who's playing well. Obviously we know as well that they just drafted a guy, Cook, as well this past year in the draft. So they have 3 decently young running backs that are, how are they going to split the carries? I'm just intrigued to see how they use Nyheim in this offense. But man, at this point, Colts are 3-4-1. You have this talent on the team. I guess you got to sell somewhere. And unfortunately, Max, I just feel like with how these wide receivers have also, and these tight ends also, when they're used, have come on, there's a lot of mouths to feed at Indy right now. Guys that actually can produce. So maybe that's a factor as well this year into that. But that's kind of the thoughts, guys. Nyheim Hines traded. I never got your thought on Marcus Brady being traded as well. Being relieved of his duties as well. What are your thoughts on that one?
I think, he was obviously the scapegoat for a bad offense that wasn't good at any level. Scott Milanovic, the quarterback coach, he still has a job. Frank Reich somehow still has a job. Chris Jauser somehow still has a job for this regression. I won't even call it a regression at this point, but the offensive line is just plain flat out broken right now. And I don't see a way that it's going to be fixed this season. But this guy was made a scapegoat for the offensive issues that we've had next to Matt Ryan now, who's been benched.
I mean, I'm not surprised because, this guy, even though he wasn't calling plays, which I think is an issue, like he's also the one that's responsible to make sure that the best players are out there, coordinating with all the different coordinators and stuff, in position coaches, I should say. And the fact is they just weren't good enough and they were never prepared. So maybe this is a move that's a blessing in disguise for Indianapolis. Maybe if Frank Reich takes over in that department, some things will change. I'm not saying they will. I'm not saying they won't, but maybe they will, at least it's something new. I think there is the bigger issue, which is just this entire coaching staff, starting with the head coach at this point. But Marcus Brady, the first one out. I think he's the first OC fired this year so far. I know there's been some coaches fired, so maybe I'm wrong on that, but he's one of the first, that's for sure. And we'll see, man. We'll see if the issues continue. We'll know it's not just a Marcus Brady issue. It's a Frank Reich issue as well.
Yeah. Yep. Couldn't agree more.
So, yeah, guys, that's our thoughts here, initial thoughts on Nyheim Hines and Marcus Brady out of Indianapolis. Let us know your thoughts, guys, in the comments below. Max, is there anything else you had to say? And by the way, guys, just because we're frustrated doesn't mean we're going to stop rooting for this team. We believe in this team. We believe that, we're always going to be Colts fans, no matter what, through the good and the bad. Right now, it's not seeming super good, but we're going to be here still the same. So, yeah, I don't know, man.
Do you know what Zach Moss is going to make? I might pull that up real quick. What Zach Moss' contract's looking like?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, Sirianni was a huge loss for Indianapolis. We can definitely see that now.
All right. So, according to Spot Track,
yep,
his base salary for this year was $978,000, and his cap hit is $1.2 million. The dead cap is $487,000 if he were to be cut, which I don't think he's going to be cut. I think the Colts going to try to use him the rest of the season. And next year is the last year of his rookie contract, and he's making $1.3 million next, or $1.1 million next year, and he has a $1.3 million cap hit.
Okay.
And that dead cap would be $228,000. So the dead cap is a little lower next year if he were to be released or cut, however they decide to handle him.
Yeah.
But that's a big cap hit if they don't plan to. Well, 1.3 is bigger than 1.2, and I don't know why they would take this on if they weren't planning on giving him maybe like another couple of years here, because like who knows what's going to happen with Jonathan Taylor if the Colts will pay him. That's a different story for a different day, but who knows how this Zach Moss thing will shake out. I'm interested to see it.
Yeah, I am very interested to see this too, because he's cheap at this point. Like you're not taking on a lot of his contract, but it just sucks. Just still sucks all the same. But I mean, it's becoming. I don't think this team's tanking, obviously, Max. But like the fact that you basically took away one of the biggest weapons on your offense, who scored a touchdown this past week, for pennies on the dollar. I mean, it just kind of shows you like where this organization is right now. I don't think it's in a good place. Honestly, no. I don't. You can't imagine. I can't even imagine, because Nyheim is one of the most well-respected guys in that locker room. I can tell you that. And the fact that they just trade him away for nothing, that can't sit well with the locker room at all. So, we'll see, man. We'll see how this plays out for Indianapolis and for moving forward, and for Buffalo as well, and for Hines.
Welcome to Indy, Zach Moss.
Yes, welcome to Indy, Zach Moss. I haven't seen what the stipulations are yet on that conditional 6 that could potentially become a 5th. We'll see.
I think it's probably playing time incentives.
That's what I would say. Like, that was my first thought. It was like, is it kind of similar like Carson Wentz's trade, like in the same vein of like if he plays a certain percent of the offensive snaps or something, or whatever it is, or if he plays in so many games, or I don't know how they would do it, but something like that. I could see that being the solution moving forward. So,
and we'll see if he suits up this Sunday against the Patriots.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see, man. We'll see. I love when people come in here and say you guys are overreacting. Like, this is just our initial reaction, bro. We're probably going to overreact. That's kind of part of it. So, worst case scenario, get a 4th. Yeah, Dion proved that he did get the value. So, yeah.
We'll see.
I don't know what
else
else
all shakes out in the coming days. Hopefully, Ballard speaks today, by the way.
We'll see. I wouldn't count on it. But,
well, I mean, after a trade like this, I mean, I think you kind of have to get out there in front of your fan base and the media and take those tough questions and speak for what's been going on.
Yeah. I guess so. It's a shame they couldn't try to figure out another position, try to get another young player from a position, but I guess it is what it is, So, all right, cool. Well, that'll do it for this one, guys. Thank you so much. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, guys, go Colts.